view.
So this is court number one, everybody. The sound you can hear is the testing of the blowers. I'll come to them in just a moment. But court number one has got 11,400 seats altogether. Built in 1997. As you can see, there's no roof currently, but you may well know there are plans afoot to put a roof on in the next couple of years. There's no great urgency to do that though, because you'll know we've got a roof on centre court. People have sometimes misunderstood the reason for having a roof on centre court. It's actually not to get the championships played, because if it rains, all we do is take the step of, well, coming back the next day. It's not that difficult. The point of the roof on centre court is that for years and years and years, television companies who provide most of the income for the championships have complained, of course, every time it rains and they can't show any live tennis. You and I, we may have had that same experience. You switch on and you see that depressing little caption that says rain delay at Wimbledon, and then you know what's going to happen. It doesn't matter what channel you're watching. John McEnroe is going to hove into view, and he's going to deliver the great wooden racket lecture, which we've all sat through many times, haven't we? We know how hard it was to win the championship with a wooden racket, how easy, in fact you and I could win the championship today with a modern racket. I don't know why we haven't bothered thus far, but anyway, so to avoid that, and actually to avoid the even more appalling concept of Cliff Richard picking up a microphone and singing, it was very important to get a roof over centre court in 2009 to stop that. So once you've got one roof, you've got guaranteed live tennis. So the impetus to put a roof on here hasn't been quite so strong. There's no urgency really, but it is going to be done. That'll provide another 900 seats altogether. Now looking down at the court, the grass, we'll talk about the grass, shall we? That's what the championships are played on, of course. Every grass court, there are 19 grass courts for the championships, another 14 practice courts. If you came from Southfields, you might have walked past some of those practice courts if you came from the tube that way. Now all of the grass courts are dealt with in exactly the same way. At the end of the championships, like any grass court, they are battered. You've seen them, I'm sure, players slipping and sliding, charging up and down. It's interesting, isn't it? In the past, you're all too young to remember this, but back in the 70s and 80s, the serve and volley specialists were kings and queens, weren't they? And they were the ones charging the net. So you get a great big trench going from the baseline to the net. Now everybody tends to stand back on the baseline and play the percentages, so that's where all the damage is. And when it's damaged, there's nothing you can do. You just have to patch and mend it during the course of the season. But at the end of the season, you can get to grips with it. And basically what they do is not mend and repair, but take the whole thing up. So you dig out the top 6 inches of topsoil. That's happened here. You then can make a nice new flat surface. Throw down your grass seed in sort of September time, and then it grows through the winter. You can see it's being cut. The groundsman very nicely has got out his light green and his dark green paint for us already this morning. That's excellent news. If you're buying that one, I've got some magic beans for sale afterwards as well. They're very cheap, the magic beans. So, of course, I'm sure those of you, no, you won't be confused by this, will you? It's just like hair. It's when you brush hair one way or the other, it makes the grass look darker or lighter. That's all it is. But the magic beans are still available later if you want them. So once you've got your grass down, it's then a question of just clipping the grass gently to about 3 or 4 millimetres. And then the critical thing, which won't have happened yet, but will start to happen before we get to the championships, that's compacting it, rolling the grass, and that's giving the grass its bounce. And that's what that is all about. Neil Stubley's the groundsman now, has been since 2012, and Neil's got every scientific instrument available to help him with that. But the previous groundsman, Eddie Seward, very old school, he just bounced the ball on the concrete alongside, and if he got about 75% of the bounce on the grass that he got on the concrete, he'd say, yep, that's a good enough surface for me. So that's what you can see in front of you. There is a rather alarming electric fence around here. Now that's not because we knew that specifically you were coming this morning. It's not actually to keep people off either, it's to keep, if you live in London you'll know all about this, we have a problem with foxes. Foxes are the problem, and particularly when there's nobody in the court over the winter. If you don't put a fence up, they'll go on the court. And they won't stop there because they'll dig it up. And then they'll urinate on it, and then they'll defecate on it, and that really upsets Neil and his staff, as you can imagine. We won't go into specific or too much detail, but fox urine and grass, really bad news. And so that's the reason for the electric fence here. And yes, obviously we do remove it before play. Somebody did look at me in a puzzled fashion. Oh, it was about a couple of months ago, and she put her hand up and said, well, this is all well and good, but what about when a player is running back to retrieve a lob? Don't they get electrocuted? So the only answer I can think of was, well, yes, and we have to have medical teams standing by in that event. Of course we remove that. The other animal that causes trouble around the grounds is London's flying rat, otherwise known as the pigeon. Now Eddie, very old school, he was desperate to bring in his shotgun and blast away at them. Apparently not allowed to do that. So it's a very clean, efficient and simple way of removing them, and lots of other places do this. It's not unique to here, but they bring in birds of prey. Basically a Harris hawk. Hamish is the one who's been most recently. Only about that big, but he's brilliant because his handler really just shows him to the pigeons, and they are gone for the day. There's no question. They know a killer's in town and they're gone. What doesn't work is the sound of a hawk. So a few years ago they tried this in this court here, set up all these speakers around here. It's a shrieking, piercing sound. It's horrible for human beings to hear, but apparently it does not fool pigeons in the slightest. They were sitting there, they looked up, nope, it's not a real one, and carried on with what they were doing. So that was a wasted experiment. But anyway, the real hawk does the job. You may have seen him. There was a piece on him last year, and in fact the year before, on what Hamish does. He's very cool. He comes in, he just basically flaps around the stadium, just a little circuit. Right, okay, my job's done. Probably time for lunch now, wouldn't you think? And of course the pigeons are long gone. So it really does work. Now, the sound that you can hear, these are the blowers being tested at the far end. These are part of the way that we dry the court should it ever get wet. So given there's no roof, you've got to protect against the rain. You cannot play top quality tennis on any damp or moist surface. That's simply not going to happen. And so if rain does come, the key to it is to stop the court getting wet. Because if you know anything about the weather in this country, it'll break sooner or later. You might get a downpour, and then 20 minutes later, beautiful sunshine. The worst thing is if you let that get wet, you've just got to sit and watch it dry. And you haven't paid your money to sit in this seat here and watch the grass dry, I wouldn't imagine anyway. So for that reason, the court coverers, you've seen these teams, I'm sure you've seen it happen far too many times, but they charge across with the covers. The chair umpire suspends play and the nets are removed, players' equipment. They're looking to do it in about 30 seconds. Because the point is, if you can stop it getting wet, then you can start play again as soon as there's no more rain coming down. But it's no good leaving the covers flat, because rainwater pressing down on that is going to damage the grass underneath. That's what this big equipment, green equipment, is here in front of you. And at the far end, they're basically tent poles up like this. Down comes the tarpaulin like that. And those blowers, those two square metal grids you can see at the far end and down here, they're basically blowing hot hair dryers. They're basically blowing hot air across the surface of the grass so that when it's up, it's actually dry underneath, and then as soon as the rain breaks, we can get back and start playing again. The court covers are trained to do this in about 30 seconds or so. You may remember a few years ago at centre court, they were so focused on getting the covers across, they didn't notice that one of their colleagues had slipped and fallen and was lost underneath the covers. The sad and pathetic side of a fist pushing up underneath the covers, let me out, let me out. The fellow had actually hurt himself quite badly, twisted ligaments. He did not think this was funny in the slightest. He said the worst thing about this was being revealed to 15,000 cheering people who think it is really funny. But anyway, the main thing is get your covers across, and then we can deal with everything after that. Now, what else have we got? The far distance, you've got a commentary box. You can see radio and television, glass front there. To the left of that, the green metal frame that's empty is the video scoreboard and also the Hawkeye replay screen. I'm sure you're familiar with Hawkeye. You have cameras dotted around the stadium. A really clever piece of software analyses those visuals, and we can tell if a player challenges whether or not the ball just touched that line or not. And how great to have that backup. Just imagine, can you see down here left and right, you've got photographers' pits either side. Pretty much there is where the service line will be. So imagine you're the line judge, you're sitting there, and remember last year's fastest serve was Sam Groff. He put one down at 143 miles an hour. Your job is to sit in that little chair and to tell a worldwide television audience whether or not, in your view, that ball that just crossed your vision at 140 miles an hour, did it just flick that little white line or not? How great to have the technological backup if you need it. And you know the system, I'm sure. You have a challenge, get it right, you keep it, lose it, you've got 3 and that's it. And those are the rules. You might remember quite a few players, particularly Roger Federer, were very worried about this when it was first introduced. They said that players were beginning to use it against them. So if Federer just won 5 games in a row, perhaps you throw in a stupid challenge just to interrupt the flow, just to maybe try to get into his mind. But look, those are the rules. You lose your challenges, that's it. And the best thing about it is you get the decisions right, which is obviously what everybody wants all along. So that's what you've got there. Now there's no royal box in number 1. That's unique to centre court. So I'll show you that when we get to centre court. But if you can see the top of the scoreboard just here for the people at the other end. You can see the scoreboard at the far end. There's one mirroring it just here. Between us and that scoreboard is where the players' friends and family are. If you look at where the security guard is down on the far end, to the right of him, where it says IBM, 10 or 12 seats there, it's basically what you've got down here. And you know, when you watch nowadays, centre court or here, you see the scoreboard, and just above the heads of the scoreboard, friends and family. It's like no television director these days can actually show you a point without working out and showing you what did the grandmother make of it, what did the children make of it, what did the uncles and aunties make of it, what did everybody else make of it in that little section there. So it's whoever the players want to invite. So coaches, boyfriends, girlfriends, wives, mistresses, whoever they like, they're in that little section just there. We're just delighted that Tiger Woods didn't play tennis. Can you imagine? It'd be a tricky one, that. New stadium required. The players come in from underneath us here, and there is an underground passageway all the way to their changing rooms, which are underneath centre court. Now, we can never take you into those changing rooms because they're in constant use. I mentioned this is a private tennis club. There's matches, there's players using the gym, for example, and members using the indoor courts as well. So, for obvious reasons, we can't go in there. But if they want to, the players can go through this underground passageway. But if you've been to the championships, you might know that actually it's a very friendly and open tournament. All the security's on the outside. Once you're in, well then, you know, you can mingle. And it's not like, you know, stay away, the world's number 275 is coming through. You can literally walk around a corner, bump into somebody and think, well, hang on a minute, isn't that the world's number 3 I've just bumped into? And it almost certainly will. Has anybody been to the championships? Anybody at all? Yeah. Is that a fair description? And we haven't met before, have we? We haven't set this up for these people over here. That's great. So it is very much like that. Anyway, look, we've got lots more to see, so follow me this way if you would. You would. Squeeze together a little bit. No, thank you. You carry on. Good. Well, what you can imagine what it's like then when the hill's in, when everything's in place. There are tables and chairs here, people sitting out having a drink, and the big screen covers the gap that we've just been standing in. It's actually beautiful today. It's a beautiful, clear day. You can see, if you look straight in front of you, as far as Paris. Everybody, can you see? No customers. Okay, fair enough. Okay, that'll be the not the Eiffel Tower. That'll be the Crystal Palace television transmitter in that case. However, if we can see that, it means if you follow me to the bridge over here and we look back on your left, we should be able to see straight up to central London. Be able to see Big Ben, the London Eye, and much more besides. But before we go from here, you can see the church spire in front of you. To the left of the church spire, that's the roof over centre court. We're going to centre court, of course. We'll see inside there in a while. The dark windows facing us, that's the BBC TV studios. You've got there. Those of you from this country, you'll all know Subai. 18 now. That's 19 on the left-hand side, and 14, 15, 16, and 17 going ahead of you there. These are all courts used by the members during the grass court season. You have to bear in mind that the members never ever use centre court. That remains special and only for the championships. The only exception to that was the London 2012 Olympic Games. If you're going to break with tradition, that's maybe a reasonable place to start. But aside from that, members do not use, they don't even use number 1 or centre court, but they will use these courts. So these courts are coming into play very soon in the next couple of weeks. So court 18, one of the features of these outside courts is there's no numbered seats. There are no reserved seats. There are no numbers on these seats here. So one of the ways you can get into the grounds is ground admission. It costs you £25 this year. The numbered seats are in number 1, centre court 2 and 3. And that's it. So everywhere else is free seating. So now, back in 2010, 22nd of June 2010, a regular first round match was scheduled for here between John Eisner, the American, and Nicolas Mahut, the Frenchman. Both of them, let's be perfectly honest, not exactly household names up to this moment. Now the thing about the two fellas was that they couldn't decide between them who was going to go forward into the second round. By which I mean they've got to 2 sets all. You get to the 5th set and there's no tie break in the 5th set. You know this, you're all fans. I'm assuming you're all huge fans of tennis. It's a great effort to come here, wasn't it? I mean, however you got here, it was not easy. And so I imagine you're great. It's either that or you're married to a huge fan, and I can see 1 or 2 of you around. Listen, I'll be out of your way soon enough. Don't panic, you can go on your way and carry on with the rest of your lives. But for now, this match goes to the 5th set where there's no tie break. Well, they started at the end of day 1, they're playing all the way through day 2 and still can't fix it. and it's the third day that they finally resolve the match. Now, to put this into some context for you, the playing time that these two players are playing, the next longest match ever, which everybody said, oh, that's incredible, nobody's ever going to beat this, was 5 hours and 5 minutes. But Isner and Mahut did not play for 5 hours and 5 minutes. They played for 11 hours and 5 minutes, and the final score is worth just reflecting on and just thinking about for a moment. The final score in the final set, 70-68. 70-68. Amazing. Amazing for those guys, amazing for everybody involved in the sport of tennis. Because what happened as a result of that is that worldwide coverage was intensified even more. People who don't like tennis were suddenly asking, what's going on? Why is this match not finished at Wimbledon? Front page of the newspapers, first item on the sports report. It's brilliant for making new fans. It draws people in. They say, what is this tennis thing? Why is there no time limit on the game? Each day? Yeah, I mean, the time is limited by the amount of time you can see the ball. Because genuinely, when it gets dark, the umpire says it's too dark, we're going home. Second? Yes. If you started at 11, and not every day starts at 11, some days a bit later, like, absolutely. Yes, you could start, well, most of the times you start at 1 o'clock. You basically, the last time you can see anything is around about 9 o'clock. There was a famous, 2001, Pete Sampras won the title on centre court before the roof. So no lights there. It was a minute after 9. It was getting to the stage where we're going to have to finish. And nobody wanted that because he'd wrapped up the match, basically. And so what you don't want to do is to pack up and go home, bring everybody back the next morning, and then present the trophy to Sampras with, it's not the thing that you want. That won't happen now because we've got a roof on centre court and the lights. But yeah, you play until it gets dark. It's as simple as that, really. So that's what they did. That was great for both players, great for the sport. So much so that was recognised by the All England Club as well. And what they did was Anne Jones and Tim Henman came on the court at the end of the match, which Isner won, and presented both players with trophies to recognise what they'd done for the sport. Now, okay, it's fair enough. They had plenty of time to prepare these trophies. That's true, but it's still a very nice gesture to say thank you to both players for what they've done. Tremendous stuff during the match. It's right in front of the BBC studios, as we said. Now, here's something to think about. And they interviewed plenty of people during this course. You've got 1 ticket per day. All right, that's your ticket for the whole day. And I've already explained to you that this is only your seat as long as you're sitting in it. If you're not sitting in it, it's not your seat anymore. You can see where this is going, can't you? Into day 2, there are people on the edge of their seats thinking this is history. It's 35 games all. It's 40 games all. It's 45 games all. It's incredible. But it's also a very long time since I last saw a bathroom. And you can see there are people with that dilemma. There's a bathroom over there, there's history over there. History, bathroom, history. And they interviewed a couple of people when they came out afterwards. They said it's the hardest decision of their lives. They didn't want to miss a minute of it. And of course, day 2, it wasn't even finished then. So it went on to day 3. So fantastic for both players, fantastic for the sport. Because this is the point of it. You know, this place does not rest on its laurels and think there will always be a queue of people for tickets. That may not be the case. We need youngsters. We need people who are, you know, it's you people basically, young people. We need young people to be excited and interested in the sport. Don't feel left out, you're young as well, there you are. So you need these people to be excited and interested. And one of the ways you do that is by having personalities and things like that. So that's the way forward with the sport. Anyway, all going on here. Now, what I'd like to do, just walk you round the top as far as, as long as we can. It looks like we can. And I want to take you just to where the cheesy cameraman is over there. It's a great view across the rest of the grounds from there. So okay, all right, I'm dreadfully sorry I even drew attention to the thing over there. I can only apologise again for the tasteless nature of it. Anyway, there it is. Look, now what we've done now is we've come through a gate just here, so everything we do from now on will be some very gentle questions. We won't probe too deeply into too much, but you're welcome to come up and have a picture if you want to. It's not compulsory, you haven't got to, and if you'd like to, you certainly can. So this is a vital part of promoting the sport. This is why the International Tennis Federation will fine any player who chooses to miss this press conference, up to $20,000 US. And the point is that for the 2 weeks of the year, we've got everybody. You have a seat if you like, so you're right. For these 2 weeks of the year, international sports attention is focused on tennis. This is when you can make new fans. This is when you can get youngsters involved. This is when you can get people excited and interested in tennis. So that's what you need to do. And so it's for that reason that there are punishments if you don't show up. On the other hand, it's not really quite as onerous as some other sports when you look at it. You all remember Michael Schumacher. He's recovering now, isn't he? I think the German Formula One driver. He a couple of years ago with Leighton Hewitt, just for the fun of it, for a magazine article, spent a day in each other's professional lives. So they shadowed each other. And Schumacher said at the end of the day with Hewitt, he couldn't believe how little press Hewitt had to do. This is it. If you do this, 20 minutes or so, or 15 minutes, depending on it, could even be 5 minutes if nobody's interested in what you have to say. Then after that, you're free. That's you, done. If you want to speak to anybody else, that's up to you. But Schumacher's sport, motor racing, insisted he can speak to these people, those people, takes calls from those people, is available to these people, meets these people. That's his contractual commitment. When you've entered a Grand Slam, this Grand Slam, you've signed a contract, you're happy to have the prize money. First round losers this year, £30,000 is yours. But that's also a good thing because when you look at the number of people on the circuit who can't actually maintain themselves, you need that kind of thing getting in a Grand Slam to keep people at the bottom still going. But Schumacher basically said, look, you tennis guys, you just do this and that's it. But of course it is an individual sport, so it really can only be you that is to blame. And you're all sports fans. We understand these interviews. We of course will watch these interviews. They're really, really interesting. I've not played on centre court. I'm never going to. I'm fascinated to hear how people do approach that. When you were 2 sets to love down, how did you come back? How did you do that? I don't need to explain that to you. You understand that as sports fans. We also love those interviews as well, don't we? Where it starts off with, well, you've let yourself down, you've let your coach down, you've let your family down, you've let your country down, basically. How do you feel? We love those interviews. We don't miss those interviews here if we can. So this is a vital part of promoting the sport to the wider non-tennis excited community, if you like. So it's getting other people in, and that's the reason that it's insisted upon. Now it might all be full for a top 20 player. It may not be. It just depends. There'll be a member of the LTA sits at the desk over here on the left-hand side, basically controlling the timing, not the questions. And that's up to the press to do that. And you can see some players really love it and enjoy it, and other players would rather be a million miles away. But if you are a top sportsman or woman these days, youngster, there is no escape. You are going to be involved with the media, whatever sport you're in, if your sport is going to grow.